I reassure my meta, I ain't trying to hurt nobody. And I sought reassurance that my place was valid and that fear in their relationship would not be responded to by throwing me away. Welcome to the Chill Polyamory Patreon live chat, where the first Sunday of every month, I welcome all of my paid patrons to come hang out. Ask me whatever you want. We can talk about non-monogamy, polyamory, relationship anarchy, whatever your heart desires, This is a nice space to, spend $3 and chill. And if you're watching this on YouTube afterwards and you'd like to join us next time, patreon.com/chillpolyamory. I'll put the link up there. And I'm happy to also offer a pen pal service where I email with folks back and forth. So trying to be available at a variety of accessible prices. You don't have to figure out anything in polyamory alone. So there's also a workshop coming up on August 10th. We do still have a couple of tickets left if you want to get that. It's called Mistakes Were Made, and it's me and 3 other great polyamory educators that are talking about all of our mess ups, everything that we've done over the years that we regret and learned from. So hopefully you don't have to make the same mistakes that we did. So that is on August 10th, and I will put the link below. It's also on my Instagram. I have the link there. Okay, so happy to see all of you here. Let's get started. Oh, I don't know if I said it here yet. I have an injury and I'm fine. So, I hope it's not distracting anyone. I color coordinated. I decided I'm just gonna roll with it, right? I'm just gonna be cute about it. Alrighty. First question that was emailed to me. Thank you for sharing your life with us. Oh, well, that's not a question, but you're welcome. It says you look so happy and fulfilled, and I love that for you. Oh, this is about my new relationship. I am falling in love, and it is very nice, and I'm talking about it. So they continue, they say, I have a long distance partner too. It definitely gets hard sometimes because I miss her so much. How have y'all been able to keep your relationship strong and progressing despite the distance? So let's talk long distance love, shall we? To be fair, this particular relationship is quite fresh and new. So new relationship energy keeps like a whole lot of like steam and interest of it's at a pace that is not probably what it's going to be in the day to day. And so that has eased a little bit the distance, but distance is hard, and I at one point did have a 4 to 5 year long relationship that was long distance. So I can also pull from that experience. But there's a lot that goes into it, right? Like, I think the biggest thing is accepting that it is not going to be the same as somebody that you have day-to-day connection with, right? And there are highs and lows that come with that. The highs are that whenever you are together, it's incredibly quality time. It's incredibly intense. You can bond very deep. It can be a kind of focus that doesn't always happen when you have access to someone all the time. But there can also be a drop after that because it's very on and very off, when you go on a trip. I definitely had a drop after I came back from my trip to Ireland. And I was like, whew, when you go back to your daily routine. So it can be a bit of a tornado. It can be a bit of a whirlwind. But that can also be exciting, and that can also be thrilling. I think the downsides are that you don't really have ambient, time. You have to very much have a relationship on purpose. You have to very much be with this person actively, and for longer term relationships that have a lot of distance, especially if there are time zone differences. Like, I had a partner for a while that was a 9-hour time difference, and it was a lot of scheduling, and that doesn't sound sexy or romantic, but it is very much a way to make sure that you don't just let time pass and not include each other in each other's lives. From a practical standpoint, how do I maintain bonds with people? I try to take a look, when it's long distance, I try to take a look at, so what do we do when we're in person, right? What do we bond over? How do we soothe each other? What do we talk about? What do we love? What do we share in person? And then is there like a digital or distanced translation of that? So people who love to like read, they might read a book together or, have that shared across an ocean. People who love to game might have specific games that they're playing with each other. But there's a lot of remote things. Like sometimes people who are really tactile and want a lot of touch will be on a video call with like a weighted blanket or a heated blanket to, feel things connected with their connection with the person. Or they'll give each other things. Like right now I am writing in a little journal, like a love letter, and sending the journal to my partner. And he mentioned that he might write back. And so, building this like long distance journal is kind of sweet. There's a million things, right? And some might sound like not for you or contrived. Great, that's not for you, right? And some might really hit the spot where you're like, I feel close to this person. So there's a fair amount of trial and error, but anything that you do in person, is there a way to translate that? And it will not be the same. And I think there is going to be like grief or frustration or drop. And that just needs to be talked about, because I think that's how we get to the acceptance of what is, rather than focusing on what is not, And so we can't really bypass that. It has to be talked about. But with time, like I feel quite included in my partner's life, constantly sharing photos of where he's at, or I very much like, and now my partner is connected with him as well. I'm connected with his other partner. Like there's a feeling of, even though it's a big time, it's even though it's like takes probably 5 to 6 hours to physically be in the same space, and it's a bit of a lift, there is a dailiness that feels uninterrupted, and that is very nice. But that is what that connection does. My long distance relationship, that was 5 to 6 years, that was a lot more of a slow pace, a slow rhythm, and that felt good. So I think it's like, what feels like doable, what feels sustainable, and what are the fears, right? I think from a practical sense, that's also what we want to look at. If I'm scared I'm going to be forgotten, for example, then how can we show you're not being forgotten? What actions can we take in to say you are thought of? If I were scared of being replaced, okay, well, what would that look like? What evidence would my brain latch on to say it's happening, my fear is coming true, right? Oh, you're seeing this person much more often now. Oh my God, am I being replaced, right? Whatever that is, can we know that? Can we talk about it so our partner doesn't even accidentally set off our fear? I think that is a big thing to know about each other's sensitivities. If I'm local with somebody and they come back from a date and they're really charged about it, I'm happy, I want to hear about it. But if I'm long distance and they come back from an amazing date from someone who's local, I'm like, I want to be local, There's a little bit of that ache, and so can we be sensitive to each other when that happens? But distance does not have to sacrifice depth. Distance does not have to sacrifice security. It's just a matter of trying things together, seeing what hits, seeing what feels soothing and loving, and getting into a routine. So missing people is never easy. And I do want to focus on what is and what we have. I do want to have something to look forward to. I guess that'll be my last note on that is, can you have something to always look forward to? Is something on the calendar? Is something coming up? Even if it's months away that you'll see them again, it is nice and helps tide me over to imagine the next time that we're together as well. So take what you want from that, as always, whatever I throw out there. That was kind of a spaghetti against the wall vibe. But, if any of that sounded like, I could riff off that, or I could imagine my version of that, give it a go, right? It couldn't hurt. And I think even just the act of trying things with a partner, of trying new ways to love on each other, just trying it, I think is loving, and seeing your partner make an effort in some way, I think can be soothing. So, yeah. But distance is not something I enjoy. Honestly, for my relationship, because the new relationship energy is so intense, I was like, maybe the distance is a blessing for us in this moment, because I don't know that I would get anything done, okay? I think I think it would be disruptive to life. So it's kind of putting brakes on the car a little bit. Oh, copper bracelet that he made for me. I'm dating a blacksmith, so we were in his forge, and he was like, we were leaving, and he was like, oh, do you want me to forge something for you real quick? I was like, what? You're just gonna bend metal real quick on our way out? What the fuck? And so, yeah, he has a copper bracelet, and I was like, oh, how long does a bracelet take? So I sat there sawing metal, cooking metal. It's like fucking rad. So hot. Anyway, I hope that answered your question. It was a little bit of like me, and then a little bit of broader knowledge that I've accumulated over the years. Okay. Okay, next question. I have a question about letting other people make their own mistakes or work through an issue and setting boundaries around that. Paraphrasing some longer context, they say my partner and their ex ended poorly, but there are still hopes of staying in each other's lives. They had a hot and cold relationship, and my partner seems to seek some elements of that again in new relationships. These new situations are not abusive, but I'm struggling to witness my partner's process, right? It's like, oh, why are you doing this? I can see it so clearly. I get it. It has been 2 years since the breakup, and the dynamics still stick. Although many things are better now, I feel like I should set limits around witnessing their relationship with the ex and other situations that have some shared elements, right? So they're saying, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that. How do I limit? How do I let them make what I think is a mistake? It is way easier said than done. So they end the comment by saying, I don't want to make it like I am punishing my partner by setting boundaries, but I am impacted by what's happening. So I'm not sure specifics of what you're talking about, right? I think degree matters. If this person is being really physically inappropriate or violating people's boundary, right? Like then that would be a different response and maybe firmer boundaries than if someone is just obnoxious or passive aggressive and you're like, I don't like them and I don't think you should date them, but I'm not super dysregulated about it. So I think use discernment based off of scale of whatever your specific situation is. But yeah, I've had to do that where I'm just like, I don't know that I'm a support person for you on this topic, right? I don't know that I could be there for you in the way that I would normally be there for you about stuff. Can you check with me before you vent about this person? When you're aching and when you're sad, can we just focus on that you're sad and I want to support you, not get into the weeds about what they did? Because if you start telling me the story, I'm going to start getting pissed and I'm going to get pissed at you for still doing it. So can we keep it simple? And I don't know all of the nonsense, but if you're aching and you want to be held, I'm happy to hold you. You know what I mean? So there are ways to still be there for somebody and also not get in the drama. And in terms of witnessing it, it's tricky, right? I don't know what your community is like. Are you around at parties where these people will be? And it's a little harder to just have parallel. Sometimes people will take a pause from shared spaces or even alternate in shared spaces. You can see what feels right for you, or having support people that you can just be with other people and not be involved in that, even have bounds with your partner of I'd rather not hang out with you at the party. If you're hanging out with them, it's totally fine. So talk about it with your partner about what feels fine, and just be clear, you're not trying to be punishing, right? You're not trying to take things away from them or limit them. It's actually a matter of keeping you both closer, right? Because if you're in a position where you are starting to resent them or judge them or get pissed at them for what they're doing or not doing, then that becomes a problem in your relationship with them, right? So you're not punishing, you're actually trying to preserve. You're saying these are my limits, so that I can stay close to you, so that I can stay empathetic and compassionate to you. I'll tell you what I think, if you want to know it, and you are on your own journey, and you are figuring out something, and can you expand your support network, So I think just being very explicit, and continuing to say the intent, you can get through it. But yeah, sometimes that goes on for quite a long time and it can feel frustrating. And so long term, if you start to get quite exhausted about it, then you can talk about, I don't know, firmer limits. Maybe you also work on detachment, right? Sometimes when we hear a partner say what they're struggling with, there's that impulse to be like, okay, so I have to fix it. I have to support you. Let me help you in this. And I think there's also value in trying to step back and detach and say, I hear you that you're struggling. I can't help you with that, but I want to validate you, or like, I'm going to let you be in pain, or I'm going to let you do something I don't think is smart, but you're you. It's not my business, you know? To try to not be so controlled by what you see, and to try to let go of what other people do if it does not involve you. So you can absolutely be impacted by witnessing something. Again, depends on what we're talking about, you know? But in general, for like lower stakes things, to try to, work on, this is maybe not my circus. You know, that's what my mentor used to say, is like, that's not my circus, you know, that I don't need to ring lead or get involved. Like, I can be over here outside the tent, you know, and let them be. So that's harder. That's a lot harder. That takes a lot of like coming inside of ourselves and trying to let go of that impulse to be involved or to fix things. But I think it can be a pursuit of peace, that we are not a single unit with our partner. I'm not saying that you said that, but I think it is part of unlearning monogamous norms, is unlearning this close attachment to what our partner does, this investment in what they do outside of our relationship, like trying to really let go of that as maybe not my business, not in a rejection way, but in more of like a peace or acceptance way, if that makes sense. So easier said than done. In the meantime, if you need to limit what you see and what you talk about, I think that's totally fine, because again, you're preserving closeness with your partner. You're trying to avoid, creating new conflicts or distance between the two of you. So as long as that's the pursuit, then I don't see it as punishing personally. That's my opinion. Yeah. Just keep talking. You expressed it in a very clear way, and you expressed it in a very like thoughtful way. So I'm confident that you can verbalize to your partner with clarity, and I do hope that they hear you the way that you intend. That's a little outside of our control as well. Being very bisexual and having like 3 different drinks available at arm's reach. I'm gonna go with the energy drink for one. All right, we got next question in the chat. Do you have some advice on how to handle STI exposure in a big polycule, especially with adding a new partner with an ongoing diagnosis like HSV? How many partners to ask? So I think it's really important to check in on everyone's risk tolerance and risk profile. Everybody kind of feels different about what risk they want to take. But when we are in a polycule, and if multiple people are not using, barriers during sex, then it does become everybody else's business, because, we're all in this chain together, I've seen it handled a lot of ways. There's not one single right or wrong way. There was a time where I had a very complex polycule, and we were all on an email chain, and we just like kept sending each other our STI results, and we each like had this rhythm of like checking in on things. But we also got really real about like what is everyone's risk tolerance, and by that I mean like, does somebody feel quite personally upset at the idea of contracting something? Is there any like STI like sex negativity, I guess, of like thinking it's dirty, quote unquote, right? Is there any of that in the mix? Because a lot of people will have like emotional reactions to a medical diagnosis, but it is a medical diagnosis, not a moral one. So is there any of that in the mix of people having fear that's rooted in like stigma? I think that's a good question to ask and sort of untangle a bit, because so many people, like I think a good majority of people have been exposed to HSV, have been exposed to HPV. There are a lot of things that cannot be tested for until they're symptomatic. And a lot of people just go their whole lives like being asymptomatic, right? And so I really think collectively also learning more, like, can we learn more about what actually is transmissive? Sometimes people will test positive for something, but unless they are symptomatic, they are not transmissive, right? Like, so whatever diagnosis people have, can everybody collectively learn a bit more about that? And then from there say, okay, I have like a big no, that can't ever happen to me, so I will use barriers every time, right? Each person decides their own boundaries then based on risk, right? If you're going to be barrier free with them, then we will always be barriered, but other times people will say, okay, I'm not as stressed about it now that I've learned more. And here's how we can like keep having a testing schedule or whatever it is, So collaboration on, what everybody's comfort level is. If somebody's immunocompromised, that's good to know. If like getting an infection could really disrupt their life, if they have 3 jobs and a couple of kids and they're like, I cannot deal with like some symptoms of something, right? Like there's a lot of different factors that go into somebody's like risk profile. So I think, I'm not a sex educator, to be clear, so I wouldn't be able to educate on that piece of it. But I think emotionally and interpersonally, can there be conversations about trust? Can there be conversations about stigma? Can there be conversations about medical health? And who needs to know what, when, who's wearing barriers, and using barriers when? There is no risk-free sex. Period, right? Kissing someone is sharing fluids, right? So it is just a matter of being aware and everybody agreeing to whatever risk they're taking with you. There's a follow-up question. Would you just send out an email to the chain saying, I found a cutie, is everyone okay with adding a person to the polycule with X diagnosis, and put it up to a vote? That's funny? No. Like, hard pass, I would not let a group vote on who I get to fuck. Period. Even though that's funny. No, I would talk with everybody and say, like, okay, so let's say I met somebody who had a positive diagnosis for HSV, which I have dated people with HSV. Then I would just tell everybody, like, hey, this is what's happening. These are the barriers I plan to use. Let's learn together. Like, this is how I learned actually about, the symptoms and the risk and when it is and isn't transmissible. Like, that was really relieving to be empowered with that, like, medical knowledge. That was all discussed from like a, accepting, not stigmatized place. And I would say, I want to sleep with this person. I'm going to now. Do you now want to use barriers with me, for example, right? So I don't let other people tell me who I can fuck. No, but I do inform everyone of what I would like to do. And then we have conversations about, and sometimes it's not even like I'm forever having barriers with you, because it's not like I'm having sex with a person every day of my life, not usually, So if I sleep with someone once, then maybe someone who is worried about contracting it can have barriers with me for a couple of weeks while we wait for tests and clarity. And maybe I don't sleep with that person very often, So rhythm and how they're embedded in your life matters. So it is a bit tricky to try to talk about this broadly because it can look a million ways and people feel very strongly, sometimes people are very, very risk averse, and sometimes people have are fine going to an orgy and fucking a bunch of people they never met and not asking that question. No judgment, but everybody that you fuck needs to know that that's a thing you do. You know what I mean? And so each person decides the risk they personally want to take. They don't get to say what risk you're allowed to take in my way of approaching things, right? I had so much sex education to learn as an adult because, baby, I was educated in Florida, okay? So we were taught how to run from a gator zigzag. We were not taught anything beyond like STIs exist and they're scary, boo, you know, like it was so much catching up in adulthood, so much catching up in adulthood. So midway point plug, if you want examples of polyamory on screen, when this video drops on my other channel will be a Steven Universe video essay. I'm dropping them both around the same time. My other channel is called just Chill Polyamory. This is Chill Polyamory too. And so, yeah, if you want an essay on relationship anarchy looking at Steven Universe, you can go there. I will also put the link here. And the non-monogamy storytelling podcast, I Could Never, is coming back at the end of August, just in a couple of weeks. I'm editing like a fiend. So if you want to catch up on all of these stories, it is a non-monogamy anthology. We're talking about examples in practice from all over the world. So yeah, that is on all of the podcast platforms. I Could Never. And season 3 is going to be fucking rad. Next question. Thank you for sharing the story about meeting your meta. I appreciate the real world example and idea to go with your partner to meet them. I've been feeling very intimidated to meet my partner's wife. I'm told she's nervous about me. I both want to set her at ease, but I have my nervousness too. And in some ways I feel more at risk of getting hurt because spouses a lot of time take priority. Do you have tips for trying to reassure your meta while also needing reassurance yourself? What a thoughtful question. Yeah, the story that they are referencing, I made a reel and a TikTok about going to Ireland, and I was going to meet my partner's long-term partner that he lives with. And it was his idea to try and make it feel more welcoming that he and I would go as a duo to meet with her rather than me showing up at their home and entering their space, right? Like that little change did help me feel a lot more welcome. It helped me feel more validated. And she like cooked for us, and it was just a really warm, caring night. It was a beautiful experience. She's lovely. They're lovely. You know, I've found a couple of my people. So that's the story that this person is referencing. But in terms of feeling intimidated to meet your partner's wife, if she's nervous about you, I mean, it depends on what you're walking into, right? Like, I'm going to assume that everybody is wanting to collaborate, that everybody's wanting good vibes. Sometimes in less friendly cases, a spouse might feel territorial, a spouse might react to their fear by trying to control or put you down. So look out for any of that. I'm not saying it's going to happen in this case. I hope it doesn't happen. But for anyone who's listening who's like, oh yeah, the spouse like really wanted to put me in my place and remind me, you know, like you can't just walk into my life. Like sometimes there is hostility from fear. But my hope would be that people can soften. If everybody really does want polyamory, right? That there can be a softening and realize like this is just another person. They're nervous, I'm nervous, you know, and naming that if it feels safe to do so. If it doesn't feel safe to say everything, then that's good to know, you know. But a lot of times the build up to meeting is way worse than actually meeting. There was that chat on season 2 of the podcast, I Could Never, with Lex, who is monogamish, and she tells the whole story of like the build up to meeting her partner's wife and how she was just like on the floor, like hyperventilating, feeling like she's gonna throw up. I can't do this. Goes and meets her and is like, oh, we're just having a beer and you're like a regular person. And this is like, we're just talking about mundane shit, right? Like sometimes a lot of times that's how it goes, is the idea of it is so huge. And then it really like humanizes a person to just see them in front of you. But one thing that I did with my meta is we were both very candid with each other, saying like, I was like, look, I don't want anyone to get hurt, right? I'm going to get very mad if my partner fumbles this, if our partner fumbles this. He's not, he's doing great. If you're listening to this, you're great and I love you. But I was very candid, saying like, I feel vulnerable, like I would be worried that I could be tossed aside. Like, I don't want anyone to get upset. Like, I really don't want to be disposable, and I'm not saying you would. It's just I've had bad experiences, right? So I was just sharing like my fear of coming in and if there was a big implosion or if their marriage was struggling, that I would be like last in, first out kind of thing. And that is vulnerable, you know? And so I was very grateful that there is space for me to say that in a non-accusatory way. I had no reason to think that they would do that other than I just met them and past partners had done that. So I was able to share about that, and that helped me loosen up and open up them knowing what I was worried about. I reassure my meta, I ain't trying to hurt nobody. And I sought reassurance that my place was valid and that fear in their relationship would not be responded to by throwing me away. Like if they get scared or have stress between the two of them, they made it clear that that's something they'll work through and they won't respond to that by shrinking me or, you know, like controlling me. And that is all that I needed personally. So I don't know if you relate to that, but like that, yeah. The question is saying, how do you reassure your meta while needing reassurance yourself? And that's what we did. That's what I do, is validate and seek validation in the same conversation even, you know? Again, if it's safe to do so. If somebody is showing signs that they're willing to be vulnerable, then you can decide if you let your guard down, you know? I do hope that that's the way it can go for you. But if not, then sometimes we're parallel, you know? Sometimes it's just not, you know, a kitchen table vibe. So go with whatever you discover, you know? And it can evolve. It can ebb and flow. Okay, a couple of questions in the chat. All right. My triad is working on communication and talking about opening up. We recently had a talk about opening up and taking care of each other in the face of big changes. I asked questions about what words to use to provide comfort, what actions I can take to soothe when I can, and the like. Yesterday, my partners went on a date with each other and I felt a prickle. I noticed how I wasn't asked the same questions and hadn't thought to answer them before being asked. So I also noted how I had written the questions out and sent them to my partners, but at least one of my partners hadn't answered by the time they went out yesterday. So you do a TLDR. They say this brought up some bitterness for me because we've struggled to maintain regular communication around polyamory in general and also around my personal desire to open up specifically. And I felt like the topic was deprioritized because they don't have to face the discomfort if they ignore it. So what do you recommend for a dynamic where the work being put in is disproportionate? Yeah, okay. When one person is doing a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to starting conversations or nudging people to confront a feeling, you know, like that can be exhausting. Are you able to say that? Like, is that on the table of something that can be talked about? Sometimes when there's that kind of tension and that kind of like, we're not in sync, it's not working what we're doing, then I first have a talk about how we have talks. You know, not to be too, abstract with it, but it's just like I need to not always be bringing things up, right? So what is the block to bringing things up, right? Are you stressed? Are you scared? Are you exhausted from work? Are you feeling ill? You know, like what is it that is creating this dynamic where I'm always the one like initiating because I'm starting to feel resentful, right? Like that kind of thing is usually where I go with it, of trying to understand what's happening. And hopefully they'll go there with you at the very least of like, yeah, you know, it's heavy or it's stressful or I never have the right words or I don't want to think about it or whatever it is. That can feel like you're like starting to at least figure out a new way of doing things, you know, because it sounds like you're going to get burnt out. It sounds like you're going to resent them. And that ain't something you can keep doing, right? Like if you want to be on the same team. So sometimes when other people struggle to bring things up or feel a little bit more like avoidant or reserved, then people will like set up times, like this time of the week is when we sort of digest stuff. Maybe you already do this, but at least during periods of change, adding more structure can be comforting of like, okay, well, I know we're going to talk all on this night. So then they don't have to bring it up, spontaneously, if that feels like too big of a lift for them, they have a space where they can bring it up. And I don't have to find a way to like push them because, we agreed we'll meet then. And sometimes people agree, like, we're going to meet on Mondays and you're going to start the conversation, right? Are you willing to do that? So it's generosity, it's healing, it's repair to see your partners put in more effort in any way, shape, or form. So what feels doable and what are they willing to do? If there is any block, resentment, that's too heavy, it's not that deep. Sometimes people go in that direction with it. I reconsider how much work I'm willing to put in, So hopefully that's not your situation, but I have been with people who are just like stubborn, not gonna bring shit up. And then I'm like, all right, well, I'm tired, man. So maybe I step back a little bit. Again, not saying that that's what you got to do, but for anyone who's listening, who's like with like perpetually exhausted and perpetually like doing 75 or 90% of the heavy lifting to keep you connected, it's like, if that cannot change, does not change, they're unwilling, then you have the power to change what you expect, what you participate in. You can pull back, for like, maybe it's a shape of relationship that they can't commit to and can't make happen, in which case you can maybe change the shape of it. So, but yeah, again, I think in terms of this question and what you asked, like, can there just be a reconsideration as a group about how things get talked about, when they get talked about, how to relieve pressure from you so that you don't get resentful, and what kind of care you're gonna need, like, can there be a best practices basically of like, yeah, when we go on a date, I'm gonna want to snuggle before, for example, right? So like equipping them with what would be soothing for you so you don't have to ask for it proactively, and then hopefully they'll proactively do that work, right? If we want to go out and play, if we want to go out and like expand our lives, we are bringing people along with us because we have committed to other people. So it also comes with the responsibility of loving on those other people, It's not just free for all, let's go, play, because that can then create some like breaking and wreckage back at home with the other commitments if you're not like carrying the weight of the responsibility with the fun. It comes as both. It's both. They're a package deal, So I do hope that they will internalize like care practices for you. So that's what I would do, is just start with a talk about how you talk, Okay. Next story, or next question. As someone who is also in Europe, do you avoid long distance relationships with Canadians and Americans? I am introverted and currently only look online for dating partners, and I find that they have the majority of the online poly dating spaces. So you're dating online and you're finding a lot of people in North America, specifically Canadians and Americans. Well, I'm American, so, it would be like kind of messed up for me to be like, I don't date Americans, I've now moved, so therefore I'm above you. Like, what? So just to say, from my, you're asking as someone who's in Europe. Long distance relationships with people, it's a time zone thing for me personally. So anybody who's in North America, like I said, I had a partner in Seattle at one point, I had a partner in California, and that is a 9-hour time difference. And talking about long distance relationships earlier, it is an effort, it is legwork, it is work to maintain, closeness, and the time zone can put a lot of pressure because, yeah, if someone is waking up when you're getting off work, like you're in very different headspaces type of deal. I would stay up till 2 a.m. for a date, where he was just like starting to get off work. So that is what deters me from really pursuing something. That said, if a person happens to me, they happen to me, and I'm going to see what I see. But I empathize with struggling to find people. I actually stopped trying to find people for a couple of years. I was like, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. I'm exhausted with the dating pool. Let it be. And then it happens, like, hard. A person happened to me, right? So you can't control that. But no, I don't. Yeah, I don't know. The question is like a little unclear of what the problem is for you. Like if it's a cultural thing, Canadians and Americans, I would say that a lot of North American folks have, like on average in polyamorous spaces, have a lot of hyper individualism that they need to battle. There's a fair amount of like still sticking to monogamous norms. And I think that can happen everywhere, but especially like in the US, hyper individualism is sort of baked into our cultural upbringing, and sort of I'm going to do what I want and you can take it or leave it. You know, there's like on average, less of a focus on community. And so I have found that there's a lot of people in those polyamorous spaces who I'm a little underwhelmed with where they're at in terms of compatibility for me or worldview. I find people in like, frankly, like anarchist and socialist spaces. I find people that are politically aligned, and then they usually are relationally aligned if they practice what they preach. So where they are in the world, I think, matters a little less to me than making a good connection, but ideally they're within reach, you know. Good luck. I wish there was some magic trick where I could say with this one easy trick you'll find connections. It's like that's what everybody laments, monogamous or not, is where are our people. So investing in finding friends and camaraderie, I think is the way to go, because then at least you're surrounded by people. And that has been historically when I have fallen in love, which is only like 4 times in my life. 3 of the 4 came from like a community sort of networking kind of thing of like a friend of a friend of a friend or something like that. So I think investing in friendships and finding platonic connections is also a way to, you know, plant seeds, and who knows, a person might happen to you, you know? Alrighty, next question in the chat. I have a feeling my meta wants more commitment from our shared partner than he wants from her. Okay. He says they've communicated and she's happy with things as they are, but based on things he tells me, it seems like she wants something different. I'm struggling because it makes me worry that he's unintentionally taking advantage of her or overlooking signs just to keep the connection as it is. So I know it's their relationship and I'm trying to stay out of it, but it's making me question his emotional maturity. I feel anxious about him and our connection as a result. So your meta is like your shared partner is wanting things from your meta, is feeling stressed about your meta, is struggling with him. And it sounds like he's telling her one thing and you another. Is that what's happening? Because then when that starts happening, when that game of telephone, or, you know, I have info that my partner doesn't have, like, I can't do that. I'm a terrible liar. I cannot contain information that is not privy to other people if it feels like emotionally important and significant. Honestly, even if it's not, like, I struggle to keep surprise birthday parties, you know, a secret. I'm terrible at having information. Anyway, so all that to say, are you being put in the middle in a way that's uncomfortable? Do you want to put some more limits on what you hear about or what you get involved about? Or if you're going to tell me that, can you tell me it after you tell her? You know, like, I want to support both of you, and I'm real close to this, right? You know, it's tricky. So you're worrying he's taking advantage of her. It's tough. It's similar to the earlier question of like watching a partner make a mistake or make what we think is a mistake, is like this detachment process of that is their relationship, right? And they are figuring something out. And if you want to ask my opinion on what I see, my opinion is, and say some version of this, right? But that is not the same as telling someone what to do. I will say, like, I have told partners, I have told metas, I told this current partner, this new partner, I'm going to be pissed if you hurt her, right? I'm going to be pissed if you hurt your other partner. So I think it's fine to have emotional reactions and be very clear about it. But like, I always own that they're my reactions. I'm not saying like, you're doing this and you need to stop doing that. It's more of like, I get scared when you do that. I get anxious when you do that. I'm seeing the two of you and it is stressing me out, right? Like, to be real, we don't have to like be cold. Detachment is not about not caring. Detachment is about trying to not be involved, you know, if it doesn't need to be involved, you know? So whatever piece you can get about being real with both of them, being like, hey, if the two of you are committed to doing this and I told you it stresses me out, then I'm not going to be in the room when y'all talk about that. You know, like that sort of thing. It can be very candid. It can be very open. It doesn't have to be, you know, like mind games. It can be like, this is what I'm going to be around and this is what I'm not going to be around if y'all are doing that. So, depends. Yeah. I mean, maybe he is emotionally immature. I don't know. I don't know. And if he's your meta, he's not your partner. So you can talk to him based on your relationship with him. Of like, hey man, like when you and I hang out, this is how I feel. When you talk to me about this, this is how I feel with you, right? Like you have a connection with him that is different than his connection with her. You have a connection with her that is different. And I know you know that, but it's like internalizing when talking to somebody. I want to talk about my experience with you. I want to own my feelings that I have with you in this moment and what you do with me, right? It might be about her, but this is how our conversation, you and me, is going, you know? And that kind of helps me keep it a little bit more focused on what is my business. So yeah, putting up some limits on how involved you are, right? That tends to be where I go with it, but always being transparent about what emotions are happening to me. And being clear that that's not a directive. I'm anxious and you're grown adults, I ain't your mama, right? Like that tends to be where I go with it. Okay, let's see if we can get one more question in. Maybe two, depends. I'm in such a like bubbly mood. I don't know, new relationship energy is like a tide that lifts all boats sometimes. If I really try not to fixate and focus on just one person and I look around and see like, oh, I have so much love for everybody. Like the glow can be expansive beyond just a duo. And I love that in a polycule. And it also helps to, when I like view it that way of like, let me let this glow spill out and not just be laser focused, because then I'm also showing everyone else in my life that this new person is not, you know, taking me away from you, is not a threat. This new person is additive to our life, you know, is it's only good. It's only expansive, you know. It's not that there won't be conflict, but I think really intentionally trying not to go in the sort of monogamous autopilot, which is like you and me against the world, you know, new relationship energy, and then everything else I don't see. Like that is a little bit how the default is in a lot of spaces. That is how my brain was wired to see love, is like just the two of us, you know, and you don't fall in love very often. So even if you're doing this for over a decade, that impulse can come back. And so pausing and saying like, I feel this glow, I'm going to text this person, and then I'm going to go love on my friend and ask everything about this friend. What have you been doing? You know, I want to know everything. I'm going to go love on other partners, you know, and like, let's try something new in the bedroom, right? Like spreading that new relationship energy all around. I think it's really fulfilling. It's really nice. It's warm and fuzzy. So, and I'm here feeling warm and fuzzy, right? You're getting it too. Take it, you know? I think, yeah, it's a practice that feels really fulfilling. But sometimes we do have to do it intentionally on purpose because it might not be the default first response. Okay. Yeah, I'll do one last question. Do you have any tools or suggestions that you recommend for not taking it personally when a partner gets excited about someone else? That is a good question. Not taking it personally when a partner gets excited about someone else. What does your partner do? Do you get treated differently? I think that's my first question. When your partner gets excited about someone else, just like what I was just saying with new relationship energy, are they now talking to you less, neglecting you at all? Like, hopefully not, but it happens. People will do what I just said and like drop their other responsibilities, you know, drop their other people, feel like, you know, and is your partner, when they are excited, are they showing you that that's kind of a threat to what you have, that their excitement takes away from your bonding? If that does happen, cannot be talked about, right? Because it is very possible to spread the excitement around and to not feel threatened. But your partner has a role in that based on like how secure you feel with them. When I feel really secure with a partner and then they get excited about someone else, then I feel compersion. Then I'm very happy for them. I'm like, oh, you're going to discover something new about yourself, right? You're going to explore something that I would never explore with you. I get that when I feel secure. And it's very important that my partner is responsible with like, if they're gonna, hit the speed and like, hit pedal to the metal, if they are going to start speeding and I'm along for the ride, trusting them, right? Like, I really need them to remember that and to handle that with care. And then if that does happen and nothing dramatic, like it'll change. Relationships change when other people get in the mix, but it doesn't have to sacrifice like closeness or security. So maintaining security during change can then bring about compersion or at least neutrality. I aim for neutrality. I aim to like be unbothered, and then feeling overjoyed for someone about their connection, that is a bonus. But not taking it personally when a partner gets excited. It sounds like there might be a part of you that is like seeing it as a slight or seeing it as a commentary. I think that is very common. People say, why am I not enough that you have this connection? Or you and I do kink and you're doing kink with someone else. Like, do you not like our kink? Is this, you know what I mean? Like, it can be subject specific to that sort of fear. And I think whenever we look at a new shiny person and feel like that's an attack or that is a commentary on us, that's just good. That's just like a mirror. I see that as a mirror. This mirror is being shown of my insecurities, of things that don't feel maybe solid or stable, and maybe it's because it's new with us, and so it's inherently not solid because it hasn't been around for a long time. Like sometimes you can't always feel secure. But sometimes there's something you can do about it, right? Of like, if you are going to go out and explore this, I would really love to be reassured with you, like doubling down also on exploring stuff with me, with showing that like, it's not that I'm not enough and so you're getting it over there. It's like, we want different things, or, here's what I love doing with you, really investing in like what we do have. So talking about whatever insecurity it brings up or whatever like negative self-talk it brings up. But really being clear that like, and having your partner take care of you, that it doesn't have anything to do with you, like it's not your relationship. It's not about you. And that's it the majority of the time. In some like abusive relationships, it's true. Some people will like weaponize, this new person is great in these ways. Why aren't you like that? So I don't want to say that never happens. Unfortunately, sometimes people will use excitement about someone else to put down or try to control or change their other partner. So if that happens, frankly, I get the fuck out, personally, because I ain't trying to make that person change and grow a compassionate heart, but it's a problem if that happens, and I would confront that problem very clearly and seriously. If you are going to have other partners, I cannot be compared to them. I cannot be pressured because you have this, like, this is not okay in our relationship, That's an extreme worst case. But the majority of the time, that is not weaponized, but our brains will still do it anyway and say like, oh, they're better than me, this and that. I talk about it. I talk about it with people who are not involved. That can help. I want to go be messy. I want to go vent, to someone who is not gonna take it personally themselves, right? Is not involved. I can't take everything to my partner. But really digesting that and asking for demonstrations, investment, energy that we're good. Can you remind me we're good? Can you remind me that I'm hot? That it's not that I'm not hot and so that's why you're hungry over there. It's like you're hungry for both of us. Can you remind me of that? That sort of thing. Then then it's a pursuit of security in your relationship. You know, it is not actually about the other person. It's a pursuit of security in whatever it is the two of you are doing, you know? So how can that be talked about and reinforced? Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for being here. This is lovely. This is a peaceful day, you know, this is a happy day. If anything that I said today, if you would like to chat more, my books are open again and I'm offering peer support again. I was closed for most of the summer, but now I'm open. If you want to chat, chillpolyamory.com. Otherwise, I hope this could be helpful. Take what you like and leave the rest. And thank you so much to my patrons for paying my bills. You're the only reason that I can do any of the work that I do. So thank you. And I hope you have a great night. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Okay, bye.